This is going to be City of Port Richey City Council meeting for Tuesday, March 22nd. At this time, I wanted to invite Pastor Lord for our invocation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're in our 40 days of prayer, so this week we're actually going to be praying for government leaders and for law enforcement judges. So I just want to pray our book tonight, and I believe it says in a good way that it's been praying all over the world. So, Lord, you request that we do pray and intercede and give you thanks for everyone in authority. So we do thank you for our government leaders, Lord. We pray that they'll be examples of righteousness in our community, that they'll experience your wisdom in all their deliberations, and they'll speak and carry out dealings with truth. They won't hinder the service and the worship of Jesus Christ. They will come to know and honor and follow him. Lord, I thank you for the favor here we have in Port Richey, Lord, and blessed are those that maintain justice who constantly do what is right. Pray for judges and law enforcement this week, Lord. We pray for wisdom, patience, and gentle authority, for physical and emotional protection, for strength and the blessing of their families, that they'll become agents of God's hand to resist evil and bring an environment in which heaven's justice can increase. And Lord, with that tonight, we thank you for the Cody River overlay. We thank you for all the work, the vision for the city. Lord, we just pray that your vision may have the provision of God. City manager to carry it on by workers, Lord, for the decisions to be made tonight. And Lord, we do pray for the upcoming election, Lord God, for those to be on the council. Lord, we just pray that you would pick the ones you have, bless the rest, and continue to be a part and serve. So we just thank you for putting your hand over our meeting tonight in the right direction. We want to thank you for it in Jesus' name.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You guys, just as a reminder, your mics individually have to go on. I think now in front of you.
On the mic icon turns on. And
Roll call, please.
Mayor Scott Ripley.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tom Kinsella.
Here.
Councilwoman Jenny Sorrell.
Here.
Councilman Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager John Duke.
Here. Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve council minutes.
Second. All in favor? Aye. This time we're going to open up comments from the general public. And I'm going to start with Frank Botteri. Welcome. Come on up.
how you doing? Just ask you again. You plan to do anything about something that can just close the heck out of it? You know? It's just living creatures, all the dogs, homeless people, blah blah blah. As I talk to a few people, nice people. I spent $107. I think it was Wednesday. A friend of mine don't have much. Took them to play churches. I take a couple of people that I know in a little bit of neighborhood. I take them to the church to get food and all that stuff. It happened to be as I was there, a couple of people up on their bicycles. They have a little puppy. So I wanted to get out there to look at it. So I ended up throwing it back in the back of my truck, and I had to fed the dog whatever. They said no, they just got this little puppy. So I drove around, got food, give whatever food I got, give it to the dog, give it to you guys eat it, whatever. I took them to walk on it, bought the dog food, I bought the dinner, I bought all this kind of stuff. That's what I do. I do that for a good few people. I see people on the streets with dogs, I always stop. I ask questions, and I see how I feel about them. I use rifle or all that stuff. I want to receive my pocket. I will forfeit them, make them. These are push and work for the dogs. That's what I do because it bothers me. You know, I just don't like to see anyone get hurt when they should. You know what I mean? It's just that simple. And to the fellow over here, I made about 5, 6, 7 appointments to sit and talk with you. My water bill was $4.90. I could afford it. A lot of people can't. I want to know, is there a reason why you didn't want to try the phone call and set up any kind of appointment with me? you ask me?
No.
Why not?
You can address the panel as a whole, but not in the individuals.
Excuse me?
It's not a question and answer session, sir. It's your commentary, so you
I
can.
didn't know if it was or if it wasn't, but I want to discuss what it is, because again, this is me about, choose the way I talk, but I say the little people that can't afford much, they get a bill like that, and I know they can't pay, because I know talking to some other friends who don't have much, their neighbors didn't pay their water bill 2-3 weeks, going down by the beach on their bicycles and their showers. You know what I'm saying? The whole country's going down the tubes. I know that. I talk to people that are all above everybody here. My family and a couple of close friends. And no offense to what I just said that, but you know, I'm a good-hearted person. I don't like to see people fall and not be able to get up. That's me. I try to help people because thank God I can. So, is there anything that possibly could be done about this other matter, like I said, with the dogs, or I can set up a meeting again and again. I did it today to sit and talk with you about this because I want to try to work something out with people that can't afford to do something. If they get bills like this, I want to try to make it easier for them. That's just me looking out for the people that can't afford much, and that's me. Another right to you? You say that? What else? That it. Yeah, we should have talked a little bit.
Thank you. The next person that we have signed up is Pastor Leonard Lord. Welcome. Come on up.
Thank you, Mayor Council. I pastor 8114 Leo Kid Avenue. I just do want to thank the city for their hospitality and just give us the opportunity to serve the city. You should have the Easter egg hunt information before you, and I just want to thank you for making it possible. To me, it's an honor to take you from the church property out to the park. So if you look, it'll be April 16th. Be going on from 10 to 12. A lot of things happen. The best news of it is it won't be a fairy tale. People and children can really know God's love, and it's about life after death, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So we just want to thank you all for being able to serve. Also, I'd like to invite you out April 14th. It's a Thursday night at 6. And what happens, that's where we do our prep for the Easter egg hunt. And it would really be good if some in the city would like to come out and be a part of it. We're going to have a whole kind of festival games before that. So if you'd like to be a part of it, giving out prizes, also volunteer way, we'll be bringing water and food and candy along with the area churches. So thank you all so much. It's an honor to be in Port Richey and to work with y'all, and just thank you for your help. Lord bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor Lord. The next person that I'd like to call is Bill Columbo. Welcome. Come on up.
Bill Columbo, used to hear more bouncing around noise. Bill Columbo, 7810 Chasco Street, Mayor Council. Good evening to you. Generally speaking, I know when you speak to a specific item on the agenda, comments are usually taken after the agenda item. I wanted to just bring up a couple of points on the agenda item we have tonight. My understanding is Park Moody, that area out there is C3 commercial development. And what I can see, and Mr. Matthew, you know better than I, the property breaking site is certainly not the final word on anything. But the property lines on all the properties adjacent to Park Moody Street are all the property of those people. We do not have a street there, as far as I can tell, it actually belongs to the street. So if we're paving a street down there, and we've been patching it according to the minutes, that's, from what I can see, is not our street at all. It's commercial development, and that's the road that runs down the middle of it. It belongs to them. So that's something you might want to look into before you commit to paving the street. The only other thing I want to add as far as paving goes is looking at the capital improvement plan and streets that are mentioned that are in need of paving. We do have a bolster down on the south side that runs from Plymouth or from Limestone virtually all the way down to Newport Richie. That is an artery that does feed the south side. The section that we own that runs from Limestone down to Lemon Drive is in very a lot of potholes, and the actual intersection of Limit and Ulster is just a total mess. Nothing but collection potholes. So when you're talking about paving, you might want to take a look at that street too. Those are the two items I really wanted to bring to your agenda, or to your attention.
What was the name of the street between Lemon over there?
You have Limestone, and then you have Ulster Road that runs down the Limit. Ulster continues all the way down to Newport Richie, really all the way down to Marine Parkway.
Right.
The mayor probably, or Mr. Duke probably knows that. That's kind of a back road at 19th, and you can go all the way either way. And we have marina ponds and other areas on that outer part of the city that is a road that they would depend on for evacuation and just general ingress and egress to where they live at. So I just noticed, I know that road, having driven over those bumps. It's another one of those ones, it's a collection spot. And like I said, specifically the intersection holds and really is absolutely atrocious. Well as I know you have Big Wilbert on, and the worst part there, obviously, right. That's really all I have to say. Surprisingly, I'm leaving with I got 7 seconds, 6 seconds.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Next person signed up is Pat Rogers. Welcome. Come on up.
Pat Rogers, 4830 Sunset Boulevard. This is the first year I came to trash pickup. I said stuff out there and the hours later was gone. Honestly, I just want to thank all of you guys for their public works, utilities, police, fire, everybody that works in here.
Thank you. That's all that signed up for public commentary. But I wanted anyone else an opportunity to talk by show of hands. Seeing none, we're going to move on. We're going to go on to comments from our city manager. So I want to pass it to Mr. Dude at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor mentioned, the on-off buttons do work individually on your microphones now. Appreciate staff getting that upgrade implemented. Public Works Citywide cleanup, as Ms. Rogers indicated, Citywide cleanup is completed. We did fill 2 20-foot and 1 30-foot dumpster. We also filled all of our dump trucks and all of our trailers. And so staff are working on getting that disposed. Appreciate all their hard work manning the station, getting stuff picked up. The Queener Street water main upgrade is complete. We spent about $18,000 on that project. The contractor estimate was that it would have been $60,000 had we hired it out. So appreciate the utilities personnel getting that taken care of. They worked over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, both to get that in. I really appreciate not only their hard work, but giving up their weekend to get that accomplished. We've gotten an estimate for the cost of evaluating the concrete pylons on the fishing pier. The cost estimate came in at about $1,800, and I've directed them to proceed. So that'll be happening here in the next couple of weeks. Fireworks planning meeting last week, we reviewed and updated the police and fire action plan. FD had an action plan put in place for the last fireworks activity. We've updated that for our current situation and continue to do fireworks planning for the 2nd of July. Had the opportunity to meet with county manager this past week. Of note, the county attorney is still working on the CRA audit MOU, and that is moving forward. Just wanted to remind everybody that early voting is available, 8 to 4 o'clock Monday through Friday. That will run up until close of business on the 11th, the day before the election. Anybody that wants to do early voting, come into City Hall and ask for the city clerk, and she'll take care of you. Fire department is hosting, I guess, an engine and crew from Pasco County. They had a roof collapse on one of their stations, and so they needed some assistance. Appreciate Chief Paul Castry and his personnel helping out our friends with the county fire department. Be a couple of weeks before they can get their roof repaired and get their engine back in their own station. So we're going to help them out a little bit. The election council meeting and swearing in schedule. Mr. Matthew took me through that this afternoon, and I'm going to defer to his explanation.
Thank you, John. Since it's a little bit unusual, I just wanted the council maybe to make one decision here. Just so everyone knows that the charter about 7-8 years ago was amended to allow for 3-year terms. Okay, at that time they changed a lot of things. One little kind of a conflict, but it's really not important. But let me just take you through a few things here. The election is April 12th. Okay, so that's a Tuesday, second Tuesday of the month. Our charter does not allow us to have and plus it's state law, have a meeting on an election day, and it calls for the meeting to be on April 13th. So number one, the next council meeting will be April 13th, which is a Wednesday. Number two, whoever is elected, the terms of such person shall commence on the third Tuesday and in the month of April. So what that means is technically the term of the person, the two people that will be elected, will begin on April 19th, which is a Tuesday. Our charter also calls that all municipal officials shall take office on the first Monday, which following the Tuesday, following the election, and that's when they're sworn in, which is one day before the other day, so they kind of conflict. But in any event, on Monday, April 18th, will be a swearing in. So the last thing our code calls for is, our charter calls for is that at the first meeting, they call it an organization, but at the first business after the new council members are sworn in, the first order of business is to elect a vice mayor. So you have a choice here. That's why I'm going through this long explanation. So you know that the next council meeting is Wednesday, the 13th of April. That'll be a lame duck session, as it's known. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay, so that means the council that sits here now will be the council then. The swearing in will be April 18th. Now, if you want to have your organizational meeting and choose your vice mayor on that Monday, everyone will need a quorum here to do that. Or you can just do that at the next meeting of April 26th. That's a choice I'm presenting. Does it make a difference? Generally, the city does it on the swearing in, but then everybody should show up. It's a 2-minute meeting.
The question is everyone available
Yes.
Monday the 19th? That's probably the fair way to look at this. If not, we'll do it as a meeting. Is that as a practical matter?
Or
Okay.
alternatively, then we do it April 26th.
That's right, and you don't have to do it at 7 o'clock. You can do it at 6 o'clock, whatever you like. Special meeting.
I would just presume do it on the 26th at 6:30 or whatever. That way we're not changing anything.
7 o'clock, yes.
First, yeah, whatever.
You can swear, you'll just pick your vice mayor first order of business when the meeting's. It's up to the council. Mr. Consent,
I have no problem with the 26th.
I'm good.
Okay, so John, there's your scheduling, and thank you.
That was our hardest decision today.
Are we told business yet?
That's all I have. Stand for your questions.
So, Councilwoman Rodriguez.
I'm good at the moment, thank you.
Councilwoman.
I'm good, thank you.
I do have one question. The inspection of the pylons for the, I'll call it the Whiskey River, was that 1,800 or 18,000?
1,800.
Thank you.
It'd be a different conversation.
That's where I was surprised it was so glossed over. I'm like, wait a
Yeah,
minute.
no, 1,800.
So basically, that's the only problem that they've found with the pier so far.
No, that will tell us all the problems that we have with the
Okay.
pier.
That will tell us whether the problems on top of the pylons can be replaced on the pylons, or if we have to go start all over. We're trying to determine if the pylons are good, we can build a new deck on top. If they're not good, it all goes away.
And we'll build the deck over around it.
Vice Mayor, anything else?
The other, that citywide cleanup that we did, would it be a good idea? I mean, it was so successful. Could we have another one like in the fall, possibly?
Sure.
I mean, if the reception was that good, like to see it again,
We'll put it together.
because I forgot to drop some stuff off.
Looking at Sam, he's making notes. We'll put it together for the fall.
Oh my God, the crew will be anxious to do another cleanup. I'll let them know about that tomorrow.
And that would be Tom Kinsella who requested it.
Writing that down right now.
They'll be saying we should have done so good.
It appears it was so successful. It's, you know, let's give our citizens the opportunity again.
As your water gets shut off.
And that's all. Okay. So we're gonna close it out and move on to comments from council. And I'm gonna start again. I'm gonna start to my right this time with the Vice Mayor Kinsella.
The Citizens Advisory is having a Meet Your Neighbor Wednesday, April the 6th. The time's from 5 to 7. Usually it has been 5:30 until, but they moved it up to 5 to 7. It's going to be at Whiskey River this time. Again, as they make the rounds at the other various businesses within the city. That's all.
And I had just a kind of a question for you. It looked like that there were some Coast Guard moving our channel markers around in our portion of the river, and I didn't know if you guys knew what that was about.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. And I wanted to know if we could just look into it because it is within our jurisdiction. So I just wanted to see if we could get some information on that. Okay. Not that I had a problem with it. I just didn't know if anyone was aware of it. Oh, okay. And that's all that I had.
I'm just fine. Thank you very much. I was wondering if we knew anything that was going on with the Washington Street project. Because there's been kind of a hold on that, and sometimes it's not getting over, etc. So I was just wondering what.
The engineering report has not been received. The contractor has taken out permits, but has not picked them up yet. So we're waiting on them. And would expect to have the engineering done soon. I don't have a date, but we made contact with them last week. It's moving forward. So
We ask them to make sure that they keep that moving. Please.
yes.
Thank you.
And at this time, I think that'll close out comments from the council. We're moving on to the consent agenda, looking for a motion.
Motion for consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We're gonna move on to council business. There's only one item for council business, and that's the prioritization of the American Rescue Plan Act, which is the ARPA expenditures. And there's a discussion and or vote or action item for Clark Moody and Bay Boulevard repaving. And I wanted to open that for introduction by Mr. Dudens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We received word 2 weeks ago that the $2.1 million grant we had applied for, we will not be awarded. That frees up the ARPA funds that we had talked about holding in reserve as match. In light of that finding, staff has put together a list of projects and prioritized them with our own discretion, but obviously that comes to you for consideration. So in your packet, item 3, page 12, is a budget and a list of potential projects. These are projects that would normally come out of general fund expenditures. There's other funds, utility funds available for water and sewer projects, but we wanted to focus the discussion on should we spend ARPA funds on basically streets and sidewalks and things that we would typically pay for out of general fund revenues. What you see there is Clark Moody road paving. Obviously, Mr. Columbo's point's well taken. We'll ascertain for sure. I think we've been through that discussion once with staff. We'll make sure it is actually our street before we spend any money on it. But on the assumption that it is our street and our responsibility, that one we put at the top of the list. It's in pretty rough shape. It's a fairly tolerable number. Bay Boulevard is in rough shape and a high volume street, and it made sense to us that be at the top of the list. But obviously, I'd appreciate your discussion, consideration, and guidance. If this is the way you want us to go, we can move forward. If it isn't, you'll give me direction and we'll change course. So
I wanted to open the discussion because I imagine the more that we do all at one time, we may get a better rate in terms of getting some of these roads done. I did drive around the city, and Limit Drive was one of the roads that I saw that just really needed to be repaved. And there were two kind of questions that I had about Limit Drive. It looked like that some of the properties almost looked like they were Newport Richey off one side, and some looked like they were Port Richey. It looked like it was right on the border. And then some of them almost looked like private roads. They were going down to look like trailers, I guess. So I wanted to know whether or not we could open that for at least consideration, and whether or not it's even our road to pave. Olsner was a road I looked at that was in real bad shape when you get down into Newport Richey, but when you come into Port Richey, it looked like it was in fairly good condition, other than at the intersection of Limit, which it was in real poor condition just at that intersection. But the one thing about Olsner that I noted, it didn't look like it had the appropriate striping. So we may want to, if not just nothing else, that road is in pretty good condition other than the one intersection, but it didn't look like it had the striping on it. So I didn't know if we could potentially add that for consideration. The roads that were listed are roads that we've talked about in the past, and I know Clark Moody was one that I think we wanted to do at some point during last budget season. We just simply didn't have enough money without raising taxes. So, it's my opinion that one is one that really needs to be done. And I know that there's been some public commentary about that from some of the business owners and even residents that are down there. Because I know that there are some houses past some of the residents or past some of the businesses, and they have to go through that road that's been kind of beat up by the trucks. So I know that they had some about the road there. And then Bay Boulevard, if outside of 19 and maybe Washington, I think is probably the most traversed road in our city, and it's just past due. So not only would I want, if we're going to do that project, but I think that we should, some of the curbs are right up on the road, maybe paint the curbs too while we restripe the roads and redo the roads. And I didn't know if we can add that, or if that was already considered in terms of the road work and some of the curbs as well, cleaning those up, repairing those, and making sure they're painted. But if this is an action item, I just wanted to clarify if you were looking for a vote or just by consensus wanted to move forward.
If it's the general consensus of the council that this is the way you want us to proceed, that's what I'd need from you is direction. If it isn't, if you want me to answer some other questions, take a look at some other streets, we can sure do that. But, and have that back to you in 3 weeks and 1 day.
And I wanted to open up for discussion and see what everyone else's opinion would be. Mr. McClary?
I'm all for it in concept, and I agree that we should, do at least with this current slug of ARPA funds, do it in one large, bid process so we get the best bang for our buck on this. A couple of concerns I have. I know we mentioned Olsner. I know we mentioned several other streets, and I know there's a lot more streets in here. Do we have a list of all the streets and some sort of rating system that kind of identifies traffic versus condition so we can maybe some of that comes out itself, and then that's actually a way to monitor and maintain our roads and get it on a cycle. And I don't want to create more work, but what the hell? Because I would hate to have an arbitrary assignment of, oh, this road's bad and this road's not so bad, so this road gets it. That would be my only suggestion. Put together some type of overall rating system and or plan so we can analyze, monitor our streets. Because Bay Boulevard right now, or I'll say Quist and Berlin, or let's say Old Post. Old Post right now is for next fiscal year. But you know what? Maybe Grand is actually in worse shape overall, or becoming in worse shape faster, and that may want to be pushed up. Just some sort of overall plan is my suggestion to this. Although I'm not objectionable to using the ARPA funds for paving, I just want to get the most critical items citywide and attack it from there. Everyone says Bay Boulevard because everyone's on Bay Boulevard. I'm not necessarily saying that's the bad choice, but are there other ones that may be worse?
What you're describing is called a street survey, and you hire a contractor to come in, drive every street, give every street a rating from 1 to 10. 10 is a brand new street. 1 is you got to take it all the way down to the base and start over. Obviously, streets that are 8s or 9s or 10s this year, if they're not maintained, become 6s and 7s and eventually 1s. But that's the process you're talking about. It takes some time to do that, as it does with any big contract. And I'm wild guess $15,000-$20,000 to have that done. But it is a valuable tool once you have it. It tells you where you need to do maintenance. If you've got 5, 6, 7s, maintain them so they don't become 4s. Sometimes it surprises people, but brand new roads 3 years later need maintenance, or they become 7s pretty quickly. So, we can hold off on this and do that. We can proceed with this, do a street survey, over the next 6 to 8 months, get that back, and maybe use that to help guide the second tranche of money. I'm open to either one. But, personally, I think there's plenty of roads that need to be reworked in some fashion. It's a target-rich environment.
Is it possible to do both? To do the handful of roads that we know are in pretty bad shape, and then do that in this fiscal year or this budget year, and then have a survey for the upcoming year so we can put together a plan?
Absolutely.
Sorry. Would you, Mr. McClary, would that be okay from your end?
I'm not objectionable to it. Yeah, I'd just like a path set forward personally.
Would this street survey also include our documentation from the city on the amount of repairs that we've done of those streets? Is that taken into consideration? The survey.
I suppose that could be included. When I went through this in previous employment, the engineers came out and they actually looked at every street. They'd stop and get out, and where there were chunks missing, that would help guide their rating. And they could tell where we've done crack seal, where we've done other maintenance work. But they would come in and ask us questions about that too. But the street survey gives you how does that street rank right now? And if it's a street we haven't maintained and it gets a lot of traffic, it's going to show it. So
I like the idea of the street survey. Also, at the same time, on the paving, does this include proper drainage? Would this correct some of the drainage moving forward when we do this paving?
I would assume it would correct whatever drainage issues might be on the roadway itself. But once the water gets off the roadway, paving would not include working on swales or ditches or that kind of thing. It's another project, another pot of money, actually.
On Bay Boulevard, I've noticed some heavy rains. The one lane, the eastbound lane, right by 419, it's just a large puddle of water there, and just appears the water has no place to go except for the lowest area, and it sits right there at that particular area. So I'm just wondering if this pavement would correct.
Well,
Well, that's what I was going to ask that as well, because not just on our side of the city, but I know where Chasco and Sunset run. If we did do those roads at some point, I think there's speed bumps on the next one over, which is Limestone. Whether or not you'd want to elevate the road a little bit to keep the water off it at certain times, but then what the effect would be on all the homeowners, because there's homes on either side. So, I think that's something that we'd have to figure out before we make that decision. Because if you push the water off the road, and it doesn't go in the ditch, and it goes into people's yards, that's not as ideal either. So those are things we'd have to look at. But I agree that I was thinking about that because you have Old Post and Bay, when there's a heavy rain and a high tide at the same time, that water is just trapped in that intersection. And you can get a truck through there, but people that drive cars, it's kind of dicey depending on how much water pools there.
Like Mustang.
Yes. I wanted to come back over to Councilwoman Rodriguez first to see what you had on.
I like the idea of doing
We'll go Councilwoman Sorrell first.
well, all right.
We're talking Bay Boulevard, so I figured you know a lot about that.
I do have a question about Bay Boulevard. The sidewalk on Bay Boulevard from Wilkins to about the apartment complex is right on the street. How are we going to improve the safety issue on that one without taking property from the residents?
I'd have to look at the easements. That probably is what it would require.
It is right on
Yeah.
the street, and that's going to affect the culvert that runs down through that area too. And that culvert fills up when the tide comes in. So that's where most of the water comes from in that Bay Boulevard area. Is when the tide is in, the water is coming up through there and coming into the area. We actually corrected that a couple of years ago when we diverted the flow from Avila Bay back down toward Salt Springs, the salt part. And that took a lot of load off of that particular area because that whole parking lot was turning into a big pond. And it's been alleviated, but that's where the water usually comes from, is when the tide comes right up through those, and putting a one-way valve on it wouldn't be practical. It would just go up in the yards then. So on that one, but the sidewalks in Twist and Berlin, do they even exist? I don't think they exist, do they?
Yeah, so I think one of those was going to be new.
I missed the question. What was it?
Twist and Berlin, are those replacements or are those new sidewalks?
Well, that would be replacements of the pre-existing sidewalk.
Are
that's
they
over
also on the street, so there's no area between the street and the
there. Yeah,
sidewalk?
they hug the streets on both sides. They have sidewalks on both sides of the street, and they butt up right up to the street
Right
itself.
up to the street.
Yeah.
So that's also another walking safety issue with that. Okay.
And I know what you're talking about on Quist. I think there's some areas where the sidewalk just ends.
Yeah.
Going up and down Quist, and I think that's what you were referring to, correct?
There's some areas that are like that, yeah.
Okay.
But I do know that some of the street and the sidewalks are one continuous surface. And that is a safety issue.
Yep. Like I said, I can look at the width of our easement. I'm not going to guarantee you there's a fix for that.
There's going to be a challenge with the people that live there. I'm sure that that's something that they're going to be aware of.
Not the ideal design.
And there isn't one on Green Street at all, so you're taking it out of my yard. Just asking. There'd be less tomorrow. But the new utility poles are right there.
Grant has, it depends on who you ask, either the next thing that we need to do or the last thing we need to ever do. So we put it on the list. It's also worth noting that Grand itself is a county road.
Green.
I think you said green.
Oh, Grand or Green?
Green.
Green.
I'm sorry, I
Where I
misunderstood.
live, and the utility poles are right there, so
Not familiar with that one.
There's no sidewalk.
Okay.
Or on Betty down on your end of the world.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. So, anyway, so I think that this is a good plan. I think we should go ahead with the top 3 items and go ahead and do what Councilman Kinsella said, to take a survey and find out where our priorities lie. And then go from there next year. Thank you.
Councilwoman Rodriguez.
My question was about Grand Boulevard. That's the county road.
Yes.
So what would the plan be with that? Because that is obviously a lot of people are walking that now. So that is highly trafficked, and there are people speeding literally up and down that.
Right.
road.
Obviously, there'd be some consultation with legal counsel, but I would assume that would be a joint project between city and county. Just an assumption. If we went to them and said, we want to spend our money on your street, my guess is they'd be okay with that. But it's something that I get asked about. And like I said, at both ends of the scale. You should do it tomorrow. You should never do it. And so there's enough folks that have said we need it that I put it on the list. It's something we wrestle with.
But it's on the list for 25, so I maybe would want to, because that is a safety issue and people are walking that a lot. I maybe evaluate the needs of that sooner than later. So are you looking for a motion?
I'm looking, I think, for a consensus, because it doesn't look like necessarily an action item, although it's kind of hard to tell the way it's laid out in our packets. What I'd like to do is frame it in the sense that what was proposed in our council packet was Bay Boulevard repaving and Clark Moody repaving out of ARPA. And then what I would think is would put on for next year and then have a study done between now and then. Is that kind of by consensus what everyone's comfortable with?
I think we should definitely figure out Clark Moody first before we start.
With that caveat, absolutely. Yes. With that caveat. Obviously, if it's not ours and we have to, then we would assess the business owners, and that'd be a different discussion. But if it is ours, I think we'd go forward at this point with it.
It's a request motion to approve utilization of American Rescue Plan Act funds to repave Clark Moody and Boulevard and Bay Boulevard.
Can we clarify with the caveat
The caveat
that we own the roads?
on Clark Moody.
Always a good caveat.
Okay. Is that okay, Jim, in terms of the way it's run? Motion is. Yeah, fine. All right, because it is now an action item, we have a motion and a second. I want to open it up to the general commentary from the general public. Mr. Mueller, welcome. Come on up.
Ken Miller, 5439 Blue Point Travel. In case you guys don't know, we can't really hear with the reverberation going on with the lights. I don't know if you've had it tested. Sound quality is terrible out here. Might check stuff, give it a with regard to Clark Moody, if it is owned by individuals, it's not the city's business to deal with. It's out of their scope. The individuals should be able to seek their own solution because their property, they can probably accomplish that repair much cheaper than bureaucracy through the city. That's first and foremost. It sounds like you guys are. With regard to sidewalk issues, I certainly agree. Councilwoman Surratt, that sidewalk is way too close to the road. With regard to Berlin, West, and back there, they have the luxury of having two sidewalks outside of the road. For the remainder of the city, may not have any sidewalks on the road. Wouldn't it be prudent to put sidewalks where there are, take away sidewalks where there are? monies that were collected with the CRA or the Restore Act, CRA, and take care of some of this project, have been now moved toward developing Cody River Main. Like I said, I'd like to see a project completed before we begin to talk about abandon all the efforts and studies that were done to produce the documents for like to start getting involved at the same time, but the city needs to make an effort. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Columbo, welcome. Come on up.
7010 Chester Street. Yeah, we have a long history in the city of sidewalks in Miller. A lot of that has to do with defense. You had touched on the subject of flood mitigation. Not an unusual subject for coastal cities like ourselves everywhere. I'm sure this is where some rescue are that there are in fact essentially backflow protectors for where stormwater comes into, say, one of the canals that essentially is a check valve. It doesn't mind the flood will go back the other way. Not a permanent solution, but it does in those high tide, high rain events prevent some flooding. Just one other thing, so that's something I would like to see on our agenda moving forward. As Pat Rogers can tell you down on Sunset, just the other day I drove down there and the water is basically almost over top of the wall. It's kind of high tide, so we have a lot of those issues over there. And all the old locals can tell you the tides are looking stronger than they used to. Or the seawall's the same time for whatever reason. Is there going to be an opportunity later in this meeting to address something that y'all need to decide on the agenda, or something like that?
You can address it now if you'd like.
Okay. Basically, Jim, in Article 2, under Section 202, and go down to the Vice Mayor, the City Council, this is what city code. The City Council shall nominate and elect by majority vote the Vice Mayor from amongst its members. The nomination and election shall take place at the first organization meeting after the regular April election. The process shall repeat. The Vice Mayor will repeat permanently. All council members shall be eligible to vote or eligible to the office. The Mayor will nominate. You will vote. Bottom line is, according to our code, you do elect the Vice Mayor at the organizational meeting the Monday following the election. That's it.
Thanks.
I'm not gonna hear from nobody about any kind of appointment or anything like that, right? You talk to others, but you won't talk to me. That's not fair. I don't think that's private. So I guess I have to go my way and you go to try to get something accomplished. Instead of talk to somebody, correct? Or I'll call Tallahassee in the morning. Have a nice day.
Okay, so
You'll help
So-
him tomorrow. He'll help me out with this.
So we have a motion and a second at this point. Put to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. That closes out our council business. We have some items up for old business, and I'm actually going to pass that to Mr. Duke, just for introduction, and then open it for discussion if there is any amongst the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me get back to my thing.
It's on page 2.
So what I asked staff to do was, at the request of council, to start a running tally. Notes, so that things that are old business that are still in progress, we'll put the latest update for that old business item. As things are completed, our intent is to drop it off the list, and you'll know, because it disappeared, that it's been accomplished. So that's what you see under old business. I think we discussed that 2 weeks ago, that just need an update on old business. So
Thank you for
that's our update. Obviously, if you have questions or concerns about that, or would like some different format, we can do that. But this was our response to trying to accomplish what you'd asked for a couple of weeks ago.
I like having that on there, thank you, it's very helpful.
Is there any further old business or discussion on the old business that's in our packets?
I like to see, we do have a audio issue. I don't know if it's the room, the microphones, the speakers, if they can't hear back there, but it sounds like a little echoing.
It's a combination of we didn't change the speakers in the ceiling, which is the next thing I can have investigated. We had a limited budget. I repaired the problem. We don't have. I've already talked to people that are watching it at home. They can hear and see everything. Visual and sound is good. That's been running right now. We are live feed tonight, so that's been running. I will look into estimates to improve speakers. I did not go into speakers. The speakers that we have here were inspected and working fine. We've ran several tests. It varies on everyone's voice is different. Projection, talking, whatnot. Some people can be heard well, some people can't. For instance, my voice can be heard from here to here and also being through these speakers up top. But I'll look more into the sound itself.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
On the sound.
Mr. Columbo, come on up.
Just to comment on the sound, sitting where I was sitting, at first the microphone wasn't on. Once it was turned on, it was fine. I can hear everything you all saying now. I'm not saying the sound was perfect. I'm saying it's a heck of a lot better than obviously, with that home, that's sort of probably I have difficulty understanding. Not saying there isn't some room for improvement, but
Thank you, Mr. Columbo. With that, I believe that concludes all our old business. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We have a CRA meeting. I'd like to take a 5-minute break to allow the clerk and the staff to get ready.